They saw if we do the things bad, we can fix it by printing money. They start violating the rules, the laws of the universe. One of the things that brings Bitcoin to the people is freedom. Nobody is gonna take it from you.
It's a totally nonsense argument.
The only way people have to protect is through Bitcoin. That's the only way. We need to reset the system. We need to come back to have a reference. We cannot print money as crazy. Today is a little bit different because usually I do the question, but now I will be the guest. So I'm very happy to be here and talk about Bitcoin, and especially with someone from Austria. I'm a big fan of Austrian School of Economics. And so thanks for having me.
Cool. Austrian economics is interesting because I studied in Austria, and I also studied for a short time economics in Austria. And when I started learning about Bitcoin, I was like, oh, why is everybody talking about Austrian economics? Like, I was like, nothing special about Austria in the economics side. And then I was discovering, oh, it's something completely different than not the Austrian economics right now, but the Austrian School of Economics, how it was. And you studied also economics, I think, right?
Yes, I have a bachelor degree in economics, but that time when I studied, I'm based in Hong Kong, but I am from Argentina. And when I studied economics, 20 years ago, Austrian economics was a bad word. So usually in Argentina you have two types of universities. You have the public university that they teach Marxist. Three types. Public university, they are 100% Marxist, communist, and a little bit Keynesian. The black sheeps are Keynesian. Then the main universities, they teach Keynesian economics, and the other, they teach more Chicago-oriented economics. That is like the most pro-market way. But when you talk about Austrian School of Economics, it's a bad word. When I was studying, I used to find some publications of Austrian School of Economics and was like some kind of marginal stuff. But I was like fascinated with these theories. I was fascinated with these authors, and I talked with my teachers, with my professors, and they said, "Oh, this is crazy. This is not good. This is good in theory, but it's not possible to put in practice." So, by that time, Bitcoin doesn't exist. The main thing that will make Austrian economic like prove that this is the correct way.
And you studied a different kind of economics. How did you shift your thinking to Austrian economics? Like, how did you discover Austrian economics?
Yeah, basically because previous to economics, I studied engineering. I'm a big fan of science. I'm a big fan of mathematics, physics. So I studied engineering for around 4 years. In the university that I studied engineering, first of all, you study math, you study physics, you study chemistry, a lot of basic science, and then you study the specific area of engineering that you choose. At that time, when I started the specific engineering, I didn't like, so I switched to economics. But I'm still a big fan of mathematics, physics, and everything. And I think that economics doesn't, the traditional economics, they teach that, oh, there is not a science, it doesn't align with reality. But everything in life needs to align with reality. And reality is, you need to think about the principle of thermodynamics, that nothing is created from thin air. All the energy, like it's part of transformation, and it's all like, let's say the sum is zero. Like you cannot create. You just transform. And at that time, in economics, I start reading some authors from Austrian School of Economics, and it's the only school of economics that respects the physics of the universe and the law of physics. So it's the only economic that is connected with reality. But for this school of economics, You need to do the things correctly. If you do the things bad, you go broke. If you do the things good, you succeed. And I think that the politicians and the main uh, bankers and the main actors in the economic world, they discovered with the after in the 70s when they left the gold standard, they saw that they can, okay, even though if we do the things bad, we can fix it by printing money. So they start violating the rules, the laws of the universe, that the only school of economics that respects is the Austrian School of Economics. So at that time there was no connection because it was like too theoretical. But when Bitcoin came, you find the way to match economy with physics in the real world.
Yeah, I like the comparison between the physicality and the real engineering style of Bitcoin, also with the economic side. As I think Seyr actually introduced me to that. Like he always talked about it. Like, would you go on a wooden ship or on a good ship that's actually made of good material and will not sink if you go on there? Like it's an amazing journey about Bitcoin. Like it changes. How people are incentive with low time preference, high time preference. Like it's like when you fuck up in Bitcoin, you lose your stack. It's like you lose your keys. It's not there anymore. Like it's full responsibility. You are the master of your Bitcoin. Do you think that like key management and self custody is something that everybody will do, or like is this just something for the outliers, and will everybody use the custodians on top of it?
Oh, I think that this is something like it's mandatory, and one of the things that brings Bitcoin to the people is freedom. Is the freedom that you have your own wealth in yourself. Nobody is gonna take it from you. You nobody can take out from you. Like I'm from Argentina, and during the lot of time, the banks you put the money in the banks, and the banks steal the money every like 20 years. The banks do something, and they take out the savings from the people. Either if you have the cash and you put in a cash like in a safe box, you can get robbed because there is a lot of criminality in Argentina. So with Bitcoin, you have this freedom of that you can have your wealth and you can carry your wealth around the world. But all the freedom comes with responsibility. So if you want to have freedom, you also need to be responsible of your own wealth. And I think that the self custody, the saving your keys is mandatory. And people start understanding, and you start understanding it in the hard way, because then uh, when you start thinking of everyone who comes to Bitcoin is like, okay, this is a new PayPal, this is a new way to invest money, or this is an alternative to gold, this is another way. So then you start like, okay, buying some, then you try to trade, or you try to put in your, let's say, what happened in the exchanges, and then you probably lose the money, and then you realize, oh, it's not like this. Or for people who lose the keys, people who lose the access, okay, I cannot just send a request for reset the password or get the keys back. So it gives us a lot of freedom. Gives us a lot of sovereignty. Sorry, I don't know the specific word in English, but it comes with responsibility. So we need to take care of our kids, our keys. We need to know what to do with Bitcoin. We don't have to send to exchanges. We don't have to put in a, let's say, in exchanges with a yield like happen. So you need to have your Bitcoin and you need to take care of your keys. I think it's mandatory, not for freaks, not for nerds. It's for everyone who wants to be free.
Yes, I often think about that because it's so hard. I have a lot of friends that are also in Bitcoin, and they sometimes even like 100% in Bitcoin, but they still have it in exchanges. And I'm like, no, you have to do the self custody. You have to do the work yourself. But it's I think a learning process when you start discovering Bitcoin, when you start going into Bitcoin. How did your like learning process and discovering Bitcoin start? I found Austrian economics before, or did you
Yes.
discover Austrian economics with Bitcoin?
No, the thing is that when I studied economics before Bitcoin, and yeah, that was something that, okay, I understand Austrian economics. My journey with Bitcoin is like, I understand Austrian economics, I understand all these things, but when I discovered Bitcoin was around 2011, 2012. And but that time for us, Bitcoin was just another, we didn't go deep into the rabbit hole. That's the thing. You just discover this, and that time we were doing a lot of things. We come from the online marketing and the online, yeah, e-commerce side. So basically, at that time, we saw that, oh, there is a new way to pay that is called Bitcoin, and it's probably like the PayPal probably come up to solve these issues with the credit cards, with all the payment transfer, all the things. So we started uh, seeing Bitcoin as this way. So probably, let's say we had to run traffic on a platform, like we need to buy like online ads in a platform, and this platform probably accept credit card only or Bitcoin. And at that time our credit cards in Argentina, we couldn't pay internationally. So at that time we just buy Bitcoin and pay them with Bitcoin. So at that time we start seeing Bitcoin as um, a way of payment, as another PayPal, or as another, like, probably we didn't understand too much what was Bitcoin. Then within the years, we start studying more about Bitcoin, about then started coming the shit coins. But at that time, there was the crypto ecosystem. And for me and for my friends, we were like, okay, this is Bitcoin, this is Ethereum, this is, I don't know, Bitcoin Cash. And for us, we're all like the same. We didn't understand too much. And then came the pandemic, and then we finally find out the Seyr videos and the Seyr explanation. And at that time, we can say that during the pandemic, I went through the rabbit hole. So you start understanding that, okay, all that you think about Bitcoin probably is not what you were thinking about. Probably it's not a PayPal. And then you start going to YouTube, and then you start listening to podcasts, and then you start. Uh, at that time was the pandemic; you cannot travel. But last year, I went to the conference in Riga in the Baltic Honey Badger, and then you start discovering that Bitcoin is more than a payment method, is more than store of value, is more like a currency, is something that is something that is like the the missing piece of the puzzle to make humanity free and to make humanity grow. And that's the connection. And then when I understand all of that, oh, this is connected with the Austrian School of Economics. This is about um, all the things that the Austrian School of Economics preach, and connected, of course, with the freedom of market, the freedom of speech, the freedom of doing whatever you want, and the responsibility of having your kids, or taking care of your Bitcoin, or not giving your Bitcoin to anyone. So I think that was the connection with the Austrian economics. But I understand, I knew Austrian economics like before Bitcoin even existed, and I connected, like, when I went into the rabbit hole just like 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay, and did you started the Crossroad newsletter with someone then, or how did you came from having Bitcoin to also starting posting content about it, having now also a podcast about it, like how did this transformation from seeing Bitcoin, but also talking so much about Bitcoin?
Well, for me, of course, like first of all, the things that um, for Bit for Bitcoin to be um, a real tool needs to be massive, and to make it massive, people need to understand what Bitcoin is. So, like 2 years ago, with my business partner Diego, we were like posting a lot in Twitter about Bitcoin. We were in a lot into Bitcoin Twitter. So we say, okay, we were running multiple projects, and we say, okay, we can start. What we discovered the newsletter business through YouTube, people that were doing, and we subscribed to this Milk Road newsletter that is 100% about shit coins. And but we were studying the newsletter business. So at that time we said, okay, well, let's start creating multiple newsletters to see which work better. And one of them was Crox Road. The thing for Crox Road is because we are Bitcoiners and we want to teach people about Bitcoin. We want to preach the word, and we want to, let's say, if I met friends, I talk them about Bitcoin. Of course, as I'm an economist, my friends ask me, oh, what do we do with the money? What we do with the money? I say 100% Bitcoin, cold storage, and save your keys. That's my only advice. But they say, oh, but Bitcoin is related with crime. Bitcoin is with money laundering. Bitcoin is forbidden. So for that reason, we decided to start this newsletter to start talking about Bitcoin and talking about the multiple sides that Bitcoin has. Again, not only as a currency, not only as a store of value, but more like a philosophical movement, and all of the things that Bitcoin put in the table. So we started with Crossroad in 2022, and initially it's like we have multiple things of the Crossroad. One is the blog, the website that we post like mostly news about Bitcoin, mostly news about the what is happening now. Then we have the newsletter, that is the email newsletter that we just select different topics and we write about these topics. Initially, the newsletter was the same articles that we had in our website, but now it's totally different. And when we came back from the Baltic Honey Badger, we decided to start the YouTube channel. And the best way to start the YouTube channel for us was like in a podcast, but I call it podcast, but it's not a podcast. Just like it's a talk between Bitcoiners, and my goal is to share not too many technical aspects, because there are a lot of podcasts that talk about technical aspect of Bitcoin, about the keys, about everything, and are very good. So what I want to give the angle of the podcast is Bitcoiners talking about Bitcoin, not about how Bitcoin is good for their lives, more is philosophy, how they Bitcoin help them to discover new things, how Bitcoin help them. We have a lot of conversations of totally different backgrounds, people who is like futurist, people. We have a conversation with a guy that is in the middle of Argentina teaching Bitcoin to the Indian communities, the local communities of Argentina, and all these things. It's good because in the feedback of talking, you learn a lot too. So I think that this project started in a way to, first of all, teach about Bitcoin, but on the other side, learn more about Bitcoin and make the world like Bitcoin massive. Because as I told you, most of the people, when you start talking about Bitcoin, they think that about illegal, they think about money laundering, they think about drug dealing. and it's totally the opposite. It's a tool that can change the world, that is gonna change the world, and it's not related to all this stuff. That
Yeah, it's interesting because I think like if you look at the statistics, if you look at the data, it's totally clear that the US dollar is used for a lot of crimes and Bitcoin is just like so much use for crimes. Of course, it's money. Like also, if normal people use it, also criminals will use it. It's like a knife. You can make delicious food with it, but you can also stab someone with it. Like we should not ban knives just because of that. Like it's a totally nonsense an argument. And I mean, the only thing I always say, oh, if every criminal uses it, then obviously it has value, right? It's like why do all the criminals use it? Like it's not true that's all the criminals use it, but if the argument would be true and all the criminals only use Bitcoin, then it has a lot of value. Like this would be a complement to Bitcoin actually, as I see it.
yes, I agree, because like again, like the most important thing is the use. Initially, probably the criminals were using that because it was a way. The point is that initial also for us, let's say for criminals, there was a way to find a way to pay. Remember the Silk Road, find a way to pay without being tracked. But on the other side, at that time, at the same time that the Silk Road was working, there were companies like advertising companies that, again, me as an Argentinian, our government or our former government used to put a lot of restrictions for us. So we cannot move money outside the country. We cannot use the credit cards internationally. You need to talk to the bank. So we wanted to pay advertising to sell our products, but we couldn't. So at that time, the only way was Bitcoin. So probably initially there was used by criminals, but then people say, "Oh, but we can do this, we can do that," and always is a way to have more freedom.
The question that I wanted to ask earlier, like you as when I started my podcast and when I started my Twitter presence, I learned a lot about Bitcoin additionally. And I guess it was the same for you. Like when you started the newsletter, you got feedback from a community. When you start Twitter, you got feedback from a community. When you start having a podcast, you get feedback from guests and also from the community. What did you learn additionally to what you learned before from Bitcoin, now from the community, from having a podcast, having posting memes, posting news, posting blog articles about Bitcoin, getting the community feedback? What are your learnings from doing all the content work in Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, I don't have now in mind what specific things I've learned, but for example, some good things related to Noster. I don't know if you are in Noster.
Mm.
Some good things related to Noster, and obviously uses, but again, like stories or life stories of people about how do they went into Bitcoin, or how they do to solve certain problems through the Bitcoin perspective, how they can use Bitcoin to help people in need. So that's probably usages of Bitcoin that I didn't even discover at that time, or again, like stories of the people, usages. Um, I don't know, like probably things that I didn't know that were possible to do, but it's being done. Like some like um, some exchanges, peer-to-peer exchanges that I discovered through the podcasts. And I thought that was totally different, and then were totally things that I didn't know that they exist. Then I have a talk with one of the Argentinian people that is teaching Bitcoin in Argentina, and I discovered what are the problems that are doing for the massive adoption in especially in Argentina. So all of these things, I cannot point one thing that I learned in particular, but I learned more about usage. I learned more about privacy. I discovered that probably things that I'm doing now are not 100% good, and I need to change my way to like take care of my bitcoins. And again, it's like life stories of people, the journey, how they went to the rabbit hole. Because again, we don't speak too technical, but yeah, also like yeah, of course, and they changed me philosophically in a lot of things.
I'm super excited to announce that this podcast just got the first ever sponsor. I just started the podcast out like 3 months ago, and now we have 21 Bitcoin as a partner for this podcast. 21 Bitcoin is Bitcoin only from day one, and they teach and preach self custody. This is my go to exchange when someone asks me, oh, where can I buy my Bitcoin from? This is the easiest entry for Bitcoiners. And if you want lower fees, plus at the same time support this podcast, use code Robin and click the link in the description. Yeah, it's interesting how like the conversations with more and more people, because I force myself to be in contact with basically so many Bitcoiners, because I right now do 7 recordings a week. I try to push out 4 episodes a week. I probably will push it up to like 5, maybe even 6, but it's like with the time it's difficult. So speak with so many different Bitcoiners every week. And this started in like end November, beginning of December, and you learn about so many different topics. There are people like really hard on how to have the best self custody setup. Then there are people like you have to always have the privacy in mind with no KYC. Then there are like CEOs from Bitcoin only exchanges. Then there are marketing people from different companies. And then there are the blabs that are in for over 10 years. I spoke with already 3 people that are in Bitcoin for over 10 years. The 2 of them also wanted to stay private. They wanted to stay anonymous. So like
Yes.
I did the picture over their face and stuff like that. So it's an interesting journey to get so many different aspects in. And you mentioned that you're in Argentina, and I mean, it's kind of popular in the Bitcoin world, Argentina, because of the Argentine pesos reaching new all-time highs in the Bitcoin, because of Javier Milei. Everybody talked about him for a while. How is your view about Argentina right now, about the economic system, and how maybe also being in Argentina, man, how did this change your view on Bitcoin? Because I'm from Austria, so the euro is a lot more stable as the Argentine peso, and a lot of Austrians don't see the need of having Bitcoin because the euro is kind of stable. It has inflation, but not as crazy as in some other places.
Well, in Argentina, it's like the point is that since the good thing, the advantage that we have as Argentinians is that since you are a kid, you learn to save in hard money. Because, as you said, the Argentinian peso is the money of the Argentinian politicians, and as our president says, its value is rubbish. Its value is like shit because it's shit. The Argentinian pesos was incredible because I left Argentina. I live abroad since 2016, and the most bizarre thing is that when I was living when I left Argentina, one Argentinian pesos, $1 was 15 Argentinian pesos, and last year when I came back in 2022 to visit my family, $1 was 300 Argentinian pesos, and now $1 is 1,200 Argentinian pesos. Inflation last year was 200%. Argentina is the country with the biggest inflation in the world. And that's something that is a problem that is not for now. It's a problem that comes from decades. I'm 42, and since you are a kid, you learn to save in hard money. So when you are a kid, you learn to save in US dollars. You save in US dollars. When you go, let's say, when you get a gift in money from your family or they give you dollars. They give you US dollars. When I was in the church, when I took the first communion and you give like the stamps to the people and people give you money, they give you dollars because the Argentinian peso is rubbish. But on the other side, Argentinians are not using too much Bitcoin. I talked with the president of the Argentinian Bitcoin organization, and the adoption is very marginal yet. It's very few because people tend to save in US dollars. So and they think that the US dollar is hard money because, of course, compared with the peso, everything is hard money. Even like, I don't know, the Brazilian real is hard money compared to the peso. But I think that when this, again, we are super early, not only in Argentina, we are super early worldwide. When we start understanding the benefits of Bitcoin towards our other currencies or other saving things, I think Argentinians are going to adopt a little bit more. The problem is that people has very big problems now that before thinking about Bitcoin. Today, Argentina has 200% and more of inflation rate. 50% of the population is poor, and this year is going to be super tough for Argentina. But luckily, all this problem of the governments, this last year, a totally outsider called Javier Milei, he won the elections and became the Argentinian president. And of course, it revolutionized all the Bitcoin community because he is an Austrian economic. He speaks a lot about freedom. And because in some interview, he spoke a little bit about Bitcoin and people sell it as a Bitcoiner. He's not a Bitcoiner. But I think that I have like he's not a Bitcoiner, and but I think that he's the most suitable to learn about Bitcoin because I think that now we have again, as Argentina has much bigger problems, but I think that if we are able to solve these problems in the near future, and if someone that comes to next to our president and talks about Bitcoin, I think that it can trigger the adoption in Argentina faster. But now it's not like that people is save a lot of Bitcoin. First of all, because people cannot save in Argentina, and the few money that they can save, they save in US dollars. And imagine if like, okay, you can save, you save 1,000 US dollars, then you switch to Bitcoin and you say, oh, I'm going to have 0.001 Bitcoin. It's like, no, I prefer to have the US dollars. But I think that the Bitcoin revolution is going to come from these countries, from Argentina, from Latin America, from Africa. People that understand because we really understand more than the Europeans the need of having hard money, to save in hard money because our money is worthless. Probably for you, the European, you say, okay, I have euro. The euro is stable. But after the pandemic, with all the money that has been printed in America, in Europe, in all the countries, and this trend is going to continue because politicians like to print money. As I said before, they discover that they can do a lot of mistakes, and they can they can fix by printing money. But printing money is like, okay, the problems that I have now, I don't solve, but I pass to the next president, and so on. But someday this is going to explode, and
100%.
Bitcoin is the solution to this explosion. Because I remember when we was a kid, like you have a game that you need to unfold some gift, and at the end you get the last one, so that you can pass the problem from an administration to another, administration to another, administration to another. But somewhere it's going to be there when the problem is not possible to be solved anymore. That's what happens in Argentina historically, and someone is going to have the bomb and going to explode. So, and then we need to find a solution. The solution for me is Bitcoin. And that's the point. In Argentina, I think we have, and the president now has much bigger problems to think about. But what he wants to do is when to close the central bank and to give freedom of people to use the currency that people want. So in that point, I think we can do something to make people adopt Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's a great point, and also a lot of I think a lot about how Bitcoin adoption and the fiat adoption, the de-adoption, I don't know how to call it, like the ramp off of fiat will go, because some countries like Argentina with 200% inflation and a president that says, oh, the Argentine peso, our own currency, is rubbish. Like that's an amazing statement from the president. Usually, like imagine the head of the central bank in Europe saying, "Oh, our euro is rubbish. Like it's completely bullshit." If that would be the case, if the ECB says
No,
like it's rubbish, but of
of
course,
course, of course, they don't want to tell the people that the currency is rubbish because they are part of this scam. They are part of this fiat scam. They are part of this legal. Last week it was the anniversary of death of Charles Ponzi, uh, and they are part of the Ponzi scheme. This is the fiat. When you understand and when you analyze the fiat system under the the Austrian School of Economic vision, you realize that it's a Ponzi because you realize what do the governments do? They print more money to pay for the interest of the debt. So they create more, and money, if the people don't understand, when the government prints money, it is generating more debt. So the government is creating more debt to pay past debt. This is not in Argentina, in United States, in Europe, in the UK, here in Hong Kong, in mainland China, in all the countries, the government is doing that. They print money to pay for debt. They print more money to pay for debt. And next year they will have to print more money to pay for more debt. And if you analyze that, this is called a Ponzi scheme. So if I am the director of the central bank, of course, let's say, imagine that I put a sign in my office and I say, if you bring me 1,000 US dollars today, you will get 1,500 in 2 months. Okay, people start coming and putting money, and then I start paying money with the money of the newcomers. I'm not gonna tell them what I'm doing in the back because it's making me money, but someday it's gonna crash. So of course that the central banks, they are gonna talk shit about Bitcoin. They are gonna try to push the CDBCs in the people because I don't know if they know that they are inside a Ponzi scheme, but they want to perpetuate this Ponzi scheme forever, at least for their period in front of the bank. Because as I said, this is like we can pass the problem from one administration to other, but someday it's going to explode. Someday people will understand more how this system works and people will start going to Bitcoin, and they are not going to be able to do more this Ponzi scheme that is called the central banks. If you study how money works, you say, how come a bank give a loan, and when they give a loan to you, they are just printing money. They are just putting money in their computer, and they create the money from thin air and give it to you. Like, this is crazy, but people don't understand. And of course, the directors of the banks, the director of the Federal Reserve, and the main politicians in Davos, in the World Economic Forum, they are going to talk, oh no, because the money, blah, blah, blah. And people, that's why one of the things that why we started with Crossroad, and we support all the community of creators of Bitcoin, because people, we want to give the message, to bring the message of Bitcoin to the average people, for them to wake up. Because if you go to a conference, they talk, most of the talks are about like the technology of Bitcoin. They are talks of people that are 100% tech oriented, and it's a circle when they discuss so in, incredible difficult technical stuff that nobody understands. So if I try to talk about the people about like all the keys or the coin joint and all the things, or the people are not going to understand. So what I want to do is like bring the Bitcoin to the real world, and make my mom that is 72 understand about Bitcoin. So I think that that's the main goal. So we can fight this Ponzi scheme that comes from the mass media.
2 points came up to in my mind. First of all, like I think it's really hard to explain people, like especially older people, like your mom and your like granddads and stuff like that, Bitcoin, because first of all they're not digital native. I think it's way easier to explain Bitcoin to like a 15-year-old, because he assigns digital things value. Like he has video games with where he buys skins and where he buys weapons and stuff like that, and he knows digital things can have value. So for younger people, it's easier to assign digital things value, and for older people, I think like 50, 60, 70 plus, it's just harder because they're not digital native. There was like a guest a few days ago, and he said like older people are not digital native, they are digital tourists. They came from an analog world and went into this digital world, so it's not native for them. It's not easy for them. So I think a lot about not how to explain Bitcoin to a 5-year-old, but how to explain Bitcoin to like an 80-year-old.
Yes, the point is that, of course, I understand, and I put the example of my mom because it's like just extreme. My mom is 72, and of course, when I talk about Bitcoin to her, she said, "You're gonna go to jail." Okay, I'm not trying to convince my mom to go into Bitcoin, but I'm 42, and I have cousins that are around 25, something like that, and I try to explain to them, and not even them understand, or my friends, that we are in the middle of the analogic world with the digital world, because we we start we enter to our mature years, like to our 20s, when internet was coming, so we can understand something like that. And not even the people of my generation, and even younger, understands about Bitcoin, about the power. Most of Bitcoin is about how the monetary system works, and how freedom works, and how important is freedom. Many of the people, what happening during the pandemic, they told you, stop, go and stay home, wear mask, put the vaccine, and most of them, 98% of them, they didn't do another thing that we do in the Bitcoin communities: do your own research. Nobody did their own research, because at that time, okay, there is a disease that apparently is super deadly, or I have to stay home because someone in the government says. With this happened the same. So that's what we want to put in perspective, that not Bitcoin as only money, or are only the way to save your money, the way to create generational wealth for you, for your children, for your grandchildren, but the way to be free, the way to make everyone free, to make everyone sovereign. Um, that's the point. But as we said at the beginning, freedom comes, is a very nice word, but it comes with a lot of responsibilities. So that's what we want to start to give the message to the people of my age and younger, that they don't know about Bitcoin. They think that Bitcoin is the same of Ethereum, or Solana, or they think that okay, we can put the money in Binance, and it's okay. For them, it's like having the money in Binance is this having the Bitcoin in Binance is the same that having in a cold storage. So that's the thing that we need to make people understand.
And I think a lot about the fiat system, like as we have it now. How long can it survive? Because if we look at it, as you said, they have debt and they have to pay back the debt with even more debt, and it's like a vicious cycle where it goes. The problem grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and it like started kind of in 1971, and from there on it's like if you look at the charts of the money supply or any debt of any nation, you see like a straight up line. How longer do you think can this fiat circus go, or will it explode at some point? Like, what's your thoughts on the longevity of
I
fiat?
don't know. I don't know because there are many problems. One of the problem is like this. We need to. One of the problem is the debt of the countries. I saw one of the guy. What is the name of this guy that he was for Bitcoin magazine? He was in Riga. I don't know how. Dylan Leclerc. He show a graphic about the trend of the national debt of United States compared with the GDP. So now I think that we are like it says like it's around 80%. The debt of United States is 80% of GDP or something like that. But in 10 years, the ratio is gonna be the debt is gonna be 200% of the GDP. What it means? Let's say now you make 1,000 euros a month in your job, but you owe 800. So like you are owing already, your debt is 80% of the money that you make. You still can pay. Let's say, okay, I can pay my debt 80% and for 200 euros. I don't know how can survive the months, but I can pay. But imagine if you make 1,000 euros a month, but you owe 2,000. How can you pay that? So this, of course, will bring more money printing. I don't know how they're gonna solve it. And they talk it this, oh, it's normal, it's normal. No, it's not normal. The normal is have debt zero. That is the normal. Then you can take some debts or some loans in order to, let's say, I want to expand my business, I want to create a new project, I'm working in a new product, so I need capital and I get a loan. But get a loan for like just burning or to make a party. And the other thing that is a big problem is the pensions, how the pension system works. Like people that is working today pay the pension to pay the people that is not working, the old generation. Now, like less, like the old people is living more, and there are no new people. Like the new people that is born is not gonna be sustainable. Let's say if I want to retire when I'm 70 or when I'm 65, there will not be enough young workers to support my retirement. So this is gonna be another problem. So how is the government gonna solve it? If we think the way that they have to solve is by printing more money, but printing more money is gonna be more inflation. So I think somewhere in this decade, probably between around 2030 or 2030, 2035, will be probably before 2030, but it will be some kind of like implosion of the system, and we need to reset it. They already know because they are coming with the CDBCs, but the CDBCs is not a solution. It's more of the problem, and of course, it's more control from the governments to the people because they are going to give the CDBC. You're going to have like a time span to spend, and if they want to push more consume push more the economy, they're going to okay. You need to uh, to spend your money faster, something like that. So that's the thing. So for me, the system is gonna implode soon, and but the adoption is growing because Like, I hope it implodes when some countries already adopted Bitcoin, because in that time will be shown the people who made things correctly and who doesn't. So I think that now we are in the stage, this halving is going to be the stage where the Wall Street is coming to Bitcoin finally, with BlackRock and all the ETF. And I think that for the next halving, the halving that is going to be in 2028, I think that many countries will be already inside Bitcoin. So if the countries, the leaders are smart enough to say, okay, the collapse is coming, we need to put our country into Bitcoin. So again, I'm not a clairvoyant, but I think that the collapse is going to be soon. It's going to be soon, like it's going to be 2030, 2035. It's going to be soon, because there are many problems. One is the debt that is growing, that is not going to be able to be paid. And the other problem is the pensions. Like, people need more money to live. So they need to solve this problem. So it's going to
Yeah.
implode soon. For that reason, the only way the people have to protect against all these problems that are coming soon is through Bitcoin. That's the only way.
And if we're now zooming out and we're saying, okay, the fiat system basically imploded and most of the countries adopted already a full Bitcoin standard, like down the road at some point, what will change in that kind of environment? Like, how does a world on a Bitcoin standard look like, where everybody pays with Satoshis and on the Lightning payment? Like, what do you envision?
I don't think that what I'm saying is, like, I don't see the Bitcoin standard being adopted in the short term, because we need more kind of technology and all the things. As I said, I don't think that I will see the massive adoption in my lifespan. It's gonna take more time. But I think that what can happen is, like, okay, the problem, we need to reset the system somewhere in this coming decade. Let's say, to do the things correctly, because they can come up with the CDBCs and all this crap and all the things, but there is a problem. We need to reset the system. We need to start from scratch. And the first measure to solve all this mess is to come back to the dollar, or some money, reserve money in the world, to be backed by a hard asset that can be gold, or can be Bitcoin, or can be a combination on different um, hard assets. So that's why I think that countries will come back with having the Bitcoin as a reserve of value, as the countries, and they can print money back in Bitcoin. It's like now, like, okay, you want to buy stock, you want to buy stocks, for example, or you go and you buy MicroStrategy. Why? Because you know that MicroStrategy is backed in Bitcoin. And that's why, or you go and you buy stocks from a miner, because it's backed in Bitcoin. So I don't think that we are going to be able to pay with Satoshis in the future, in the short term. But again, many countries can adopt Bitcoin and say, okay, this is our reserve, and our money is going to be backed by Bitcoin. So this is going to put the countries in a powerful um, state against other countries that they don't adopt Bitcoin. That's the thing. And they can adopt Bitcoin, they can adopt gold. That, I think that what is going to happen is, like, okay, we need to reset the system. We need to come back from to have a reference. We cannot print money as crazy. So we have to take care of our expenses. We cannot do a lot of, like, stupid expense that the government do. We need to cut our expenses. We need to be responsible. We need to be responsible of what we do. And this is something that the experiment that is going to be done in now is in Argentina, because our government, our new president, as an Austrian economist, he is 100% against of state. He says that the state needs to be small, needs to provide only um, justice and safety to the inhabitants. He says that taxation is theft. And he says that the government has to spend the money that enters, no more. They cannot print money. So I think that if he succeed, and I'm 100% sure he's going to be successful, I think that many countries will start copying this model, and we need to adapt to this. And when the system collapses, because it's going to collapse, they will say, okay, let's start building from scratch, taking the examples of the people who did the things correctly. And it's going to come, okay, we need to go to hard money. Our money needs to be backed with something hard. We don't have to spend more money than the money that comes to our pockets, because this is something that everyone needs to do. And I think that in that way we can start reconstruct the world. And one of the things that is going to back the wealth is Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is a store of wealth, is a store of energy, and is the most perfect thing that has been created by the humans, or not. I don't know. I don't know if Satoshi was a human or an alien or a time traveler, but Bitcoin, when you analyze Bitcoin, it's the most perfect thing that was created. So why not backing our economy against the most perfect thing ever created?
I think that's a perfect way to kind of end the podcast, and with like Bitcoin and the future outlet, and as you beautifully said it, we're having an end routine in the podcast where the previous guest asked the question for the next guest, and it's an interesting question for you that came up. If you weren't working in Bitcoin, what would you do now?
If you, sorry, again?
If you would not work in Bitcoin right now, like if you would not do anything in Bitcoin, what would you do with the time you otherwise would have spent on Bitcoin?
Oof, I don't know, because like I cannot think my life without talking about Bitcoin. So probably I would be interested in the stock markets. I will be probably making a podcast about martial arts that I like. But to be honest, I think that I don't see myself not thinking about Bitcoin, because again, it's the most perfect thing that was ever created. Is the most is one of the things. In one episode of our podcast, a guy says that Bitcoin is the currency of a type 1 civilization. A type 1 civilization is a very advanced civilization, so it's something that is going to bring us to be a better civilization. And I think that is the only thing that gives humanity a hope for the future. So a hope for the future, because again, the system will collapse, but if we start rebuilding our system, our world, our human transactions, our human interactions based on the Bitcoin standard, the humanity that is going to come probably in 150, 200, 300, or 500 years is going to be amazing. The exponential growth, probably I will see a little bit of growth before I go to another dimension. But I think it's going to be that's the point. That's why I don't know what I would say if I was not in Bitcoin. Probably I would be lost. I don't know, but because Bitcoin gives a lot of hope for the future, not for my future, because I don't care. Like every people say, okay, with zero point 0.1 Bitcoin, you are creating generational wealth. And at that point, I said, I don't care about my wealth. I care about humanity. And I think that this is hope that, again, to bring me hope about the future of humanity for the
Yeah.
new generations, and the generation that will come is going to be better.
That's a beautiful thing to say. Where can people find you the best if they want to get in touch with you?
Well, we have our our newsletter Twitter. In Twitter is Crox Road News. Then we have our Instagram is croxroadnews.co. We have Nostr, croxroad at getalbi.com. Then we have the other Twitter that is managed mostly from my friend is Romulo, Romuolo. And in YouTube, we are Crossroad News too. You can see our podcast. Then we have our website, Crossroads, sorry, croxroad.co. So yeah, and our podcast now is in Spanish. That is my mother language, and in English. But yeah, that's how they can find us.
Yeah, perfect. I think every social platform, just typing in Croxroad and you will kind of find you.
Yes, yes. Every social platform they can type Crossroad, but except Crossroad or Crossroad News, except Instagram that is Crossroad News.
Perfect. Then thank you for being on, Fernando, and it was a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me, and as we said before, we are gonna host you in our podcast in the
I'm
future.
looking I'm looking forward to it. Bye bye.